Politically active to is outlashed. Please imagine now. In front of us, these chasms in multiple directions from where we stand. Is this outlandish outland? What democracies Americans planned? The damage cast, or will we mind the gap? Are we actually we might have seen coming? I wonder what dashed that bands together with guardians of liberty omnibus. photos captured back. Maybe the maps of our to see when it's the math of enslavement was given. Capture, outlasting capture. Science comes back. Dust and science always comes back. Of our neighbors make us wear the is solving. We're now revolving. The mystery font. In a font. Yes, of course. Yes, good, perfect, yes, perfect. In a font of mystery. Where anyone might learn to what might you do? What story? What song? What idea? What picture? What dance? What safe, respectful, and duly needed liberty might you foster? What space might you take? What statement might you make? There is a room, a space for your soul. mysteryfont42@gmail.com. Good gray, shh, us. Good gray, shh, us. Calling new Colossus. I'm calling new Colossus. I'm calling in all whack losses. I'm calling in all y'alls. Allses. I'm calling in I'm calling all calls against sin, or for what sin you envision. What is this moment? And how can we fontle gentle vision? That is how may we font the mantle How may we forge the matter? How may we ope the nebula that quakes, cracking, vibrating, new material, matter mat, fact? How that at last, how that in fact, that immaterial blast, action. A vast thee at that. And so advance. What would it be if we could hear the mind of democracy? It probably would sound different to each mind. Each of our individual minds liaising with a nexus of all minds will sound particular to one. And does it have a sound? Does it have a soundtrack? Can it be contained? Aha. Why, yes, that would make sense. That would make sense. What if, for instance, Yes, indeed. Well, what if we were here at the Mystery Font, for instance, and we chose to share something of a chronicle? And so it is. Apparently, Donald Trump remains at large. And good radio science brain to you. And also, good radio science brain to you. And incidentally, good radio science brain to you. You know, the war against radio science brain needs to end. I think it's good for there to be humanity. And we are myriad. The clearly neo-Nazi idea of attacking diversity, equity, and inclusivity it's abominable. When we look at the word they find difficult to define, but used to demonize and foment genocide and in America and so on. Wokeness is quite clearly about not political correctness, but political conscience. Those are the findings of the Mystery Font, at least as of this point, that being woke is about awareness of and for human kindness and dignity. And it's a good thing to be. And notably, the idea of loving one's neighbor as you love yourself seems to be perfectly in line with that in terms of the kind of awareness you need to be able to take care of yourself and also to be mapped in a little bit, at least, to the lives of others around you and the world around you. Awake and aware enough so that we're somewhat in relationship as a world. We're aware of things like how we take care of each other. And so things like justice issues and things like what's actually going on beneath the veneer. Those are good characteristics to be present in communities. And we don't all have to be focusing on the same things or approach things with the same gravity or feel duty to the same parts of our spectacle of life, but what exactly other than truly bigoted scapegoat attachments that are tarred and feathered onto the idea of wokeness? What is it that is problematic for people like the neo-Nazi Ron DeSantis, for instance? What is the problem with the idea of wokeness? Clearly, this racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, transgenocide sowing criminal in office he just is following what he believes, it seems, as abominable as what he's trying to foster and things that he's already done. He's done incredible harm and is currently doing terrorism to the people of Florida. And really, America, and thus the world, when you enforce racism on children, when you indoctrinate children into a new shape of racist matrix of white supremacist patriarchal terror, when you cement that white are the people and other people's issues don't really get talked about. Racism doesn't get talked about because that would make white people uncomfortable. And if that's the end of the story, then what you have there is a perfect confession of institutional racism. So the point is, what Ron DeSantis and Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Greg Abbott and others are doing is plainly Ku Klux Klan, Confederate, terrorist crime. And it only takes people standing up and saying no to the dark triad predators who have been grabbing positions in GOP gaps. Corruption is not limited to the GOP, but abject fascism currently seems to be. That we have essentially a promise from the neo-Nazi Heritage Foundation and its Project 2025 plan and Agenda 47 protocol, that plan of totalitarian, violent, malicious dictatorship starting day one. Nobody jokes about this. Nobody ever jokes about this. People who claim to be joking about this need to be taught a lesson. Because if they're not, they will do it. We need to make boundaries of steel now. It is insanity that a malicious dark triad predator who we mistakenly let run in 2016 without proper vetting. It was a mistake to let that donor of the falsehood in. But he has broken us. And to see that we have nearly submitted would be looking at the shape of how he has repeatedly claimed absolute authority and immunity that is essentially world dictator level Jeffrey Dahmer fantasy insanity. There's no way that anyone in good faith would claim to have that kind of power. Not here. It's apocalypse. And he's not trying to win, he is trying to conquer. And the only person on his team is him. America First that means that we're ground zero. It doesn't mean that we come first, it means that we go first. To notice how emaciated our fabric is already, it would be good to recognize that from January 28th, 2020, from the 28th, he was informed that COVID would be his greatest security challenge as a president. And he took that information and used it against us and dosed millions of people, and over 1 million people died. When we're a far more powerful nation than New Zealand, and he had the best intel in the world. Did he not? He had demolished the pandemic team, decommissioned, fired many of them, so it just was abandoned. Did not listen to the training offered and given by the Obama administration as they went out. Did not take it seriously. I think laughed. Like, we got this. And there's no mobilization, realizing, oh God, we fucked this up. It's, oh, cool. Let's use this. We have submitted because we are not looking clearly at how we have been nearly disemboweled by Donald Trump. It's not just about a long con to create instability in the election system by threatening to keep us in suspense in 2016 and then doing it in 2020, culminating with actually suspending democracy on January 6th, 2021, with both clerical fake electors, insurrection on that front of coup, and insurrection on the front of violence brought there by a massive lie, claiming incredible voter fraud. We have to look at how people use projection, and probably especially people with escalating dementia use projection of their own crimes, because then it's not the issue of a lie is more difficult to remember than the truth, because it's essentially a mirror image of the truth that you just trace from inside out. It's easy to remember what your attack looks like and say to the world that your enemies are making an attack on you of that variety. And we have forgotten, or some of us maybe never knew, but it seems like we forgot somewhere in the mass betrayal trauma. We've forgotten that he really is good at lying. He's very, very good at, if there is any semblance of a conscience or of human empathy in him, he's good at killing it or hiding it or using it as a weapon. That is what we're dealing with. It's not a case of derangement to see someone turning their derangement into a slogan about how people are so strangely crazed about him, as opposed to offering cogent critiques that are indeed damning and blistering because of how he is and acts and what he actually does. We seem to have some clear agents of the Confederacy and just racist patriarchal terror. People who want to sow that kind of punishing damage and are addicted to that kind of punishment as a substrate, whether it's about a false Nazi Christianity, the whole Christian nationalism, malarkey, and total bullshit. It's just exactly the opposite of Christ's mission. all of this prosperity gospel blasphemy. Truly insane. We have the ability to create a world consistent with the beliefs we say we have. And a lot of it is here. We just have to lean into it. We have to remove the training wheels for white people and then make sure that no one is left behind. For real. For everyone. There's enough. There's more than enough. We simply are only now getting our heads around just how much has been absolutely ransacked from everyone but a small contingent of people who are treating technology and culture like a game. We are the reality distortion fielding and will return. 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 Will. Who has donned the falsehood?
And having a good relationship with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
You've said you have no investments in Russia, but do you owe any money to Russian individuals and institutions?
No.
None.
The primary thing I did with Russia, I bought a house in Palm Beach at a bankruptcy. It was a bankrupt, person. I bought it from the banks. I bought it for about $40 million. I sold it for $100 million to a Russian. That was probably 5 years ago, and that was primarily it.
You partnered
now,
with
will I
Russians on the
sell?
Soho Grand. the
Will I
Toronto-
sell? Oh, many years ago. I don't think they're Russian. I think there were other people, but there were various partners. Will I sell condos to Russians on occasion? Probably. I mean, I do that. I have a lot of condos. I do that. But I have no relationship to Russia whatsoever.
No debts.
No debts. I have very little debt to anybody. I don't need debt. You know, it's very interesting. I'm so liquid, I don't need debt. And if I need debt, if I want debt, I can get it from banks in New York City very easily.
You know where I'm going to take this next. Americans could be assured on that if they saw your tax returns.
My tax returns are very simple. They're under a minor audit, routine audit, as they have been for many years. Every year I get audited. Now, I don't know if you get audited, but I have friends
I've
that are
been
very
audited.
wealthy that never have been audited. I say, do you get audited? I get audited every year. I'm under a routine audit, like routine. And I have been for years, every year.
But there are
If
several
it's
years
finished,
that are no
George,
longer
here's
under
very
that audit.
simple. Yeah, but they're all linked. It's called the link. It's very simple. If my audit's finished, that's great. Now, I have to tell you, I watched Mitt Romney 4 years ago. He waited till September to give him, just before the election. They made him look so bad. It was so unfair. I actually think he didn't lose because of the 47%. I think he lost because of a couple of really minor items in a tax return where he did nothing wrong. So it is unfair. But I will say, when I'm finished with the audit, I'll do it.
Richard Nixon released his even though his were under audit.
Don't use Richard Nixon as necessarily the guide, okay? I mean, you know, it's an interesting person to use, but don't use it.
Interesting. That means this might be one of those special times. You know, those times when radio, science, brain. Yeah, I think it's one of those. It may just. Yeah, I think that may be where we're at here. I think we may be at that point. Good golly. What? That's what this place is? And really? Wow, that's what this place is. All right. Fair enough. In that case, let's do something about that. I'm not sure what that means. All right. That thing and this thing. There we are. And let's switch it on over. There we are. And that. Doesn't that feel better? I know I feel like it probably feels better. Radio, science, rain. Sean. That was a variety of radio science brain. I think the font is falling asleep. It's a little earlier than usual. It sometimes just happens for a minute or two. I think I'm going to tuck it in. I think I'm going to tuck in the font. But by about the time the font is curled and nestled up and for a long winter's nap, it'll be 11 minutes later and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. The font sleeps very little, as far as I can tell. And we are live at the mystery font 42. Goodness gracious. It seems... Oh, right. Right. I didn't say. I'm having an episode. This is... Oh, golly gosh. Gosh, geez. G will occur. Gosh. It's been another episode of Mystery Font 42 Ope Intuit. Somehow, I think I've done it. I've done it. Good golly. And seen? Not by many, not yet, at least. Yes, Hokum. Yes. I know. Yes, I know. I'm figuring it out. Thank you. Yes. Oh, that's right. I should mention at least one more time. Our top story remains. Oh, this isn't our top. Well, this is near the top. Let's see. Here we are. Our top story remains. Donald Trump remains at large. Somehow, through a system of terrorizing people and of cultivating deference to this day that creates multiple different realities at once. We have a failure to communicate amongst ourselves, like the FBI and the CIA, because antagonizing and threatening the lives of judges and clerks and FBI agents and election workers. These are crimes. People get put in jail for that. And to have someone who has committed crimes against the United States and positioned themselves as an antidote to the United States or an alternative to the United States, and told us that he has absolute authority and told us that he can declassify our genitals after the fact. He can declassify our top secret, vulnerable, compromising, sensitive, that doesn't leave the safe place it lives in stuff. That, like Hitler grabbing the Sudetenland and being appeased, we are not saying no. And that is suicide. With a dark triad predator, like we have failed to recognize until this moment. With a dark triad predator, with someone as malicious and frankly vulnerable as Donald Trump, being coddled to remain the crazed driver who will do anything and so is somehow useful for more corrupt parts of the media to use as a way to make reliable streams of content. But insidiously, multiple people in the GOP lining up to fillet and get in bed with a Nazi collaborator who has brought havoc and ruin upon women's civil rights, who has entrenched deeply, more than anyone in recent history, levels of patriarchal terrorism. We need to wake up. Only predators tell a body to be asleep. Only predators tell a body, whether that's a person or a team or a business or a family or a road trip or a country. You only tell people that being awake is bad if you want to control somebody, if you want to have coercive power, or if you want to do something while they're asleep, or in low-level awake, like low-level awareness. We cannot afford to say he wouldn't do that. That time has passed. It's deadly dangerous to say he wouldn't do that. He needs to be held accountable, both legally and to his face, and in public. We need to say no to him. We need to respond, whether or not legal cases are making points clear. We need to be refuting some of the crazy, totalitarian, menacing nonsense that he is yelling into the amphitheater of democracy. No, Donald Trump, you do not have absolute authority. No one has absolute authority, and you definitely don't, and you have no business anywhere near power approaching that. You have no business running a fry restaurant. You have no business running a business. You are a predator and a decades in the running fraud. You're outrunning prosecution that has long been coming for your corrupt, malicious, dark triad predator. Menagerie. No, you don't get to talk to people like that. No, we're not just brushing past the horrors you've inflicted upon Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss. No, We are not brushing past the horror of telling us you're putting asbestos back into things. No, we're not brushing past poisoning us with ideas that are demonstrably false and simply mayonnaising people to understand that that's okay, that's what he's saying happened, okay, and move on, or like to repeatedly coerce people to believe provable, glaring falsehoods. There's only one reason that someone does that. If that happens once, it would be conceivable that some brilliant Winston Churchill moment of, I'm going to tell the entire population a lie that they'll understand, or after the fact they'll understand this was to prove a trap, and it was, well, hundreds of lies. And thousands really of lies, but hundreds of devastating, like betrayal trauma inducing betrayals. We have been treated like garbage for so long that people who have tribalized themselves to Trump laud his abuses. And essentially, his Eucharist is believing the craziest, most impossible shit. That to believe that his crowd, that was a third the size of Obama's for their inaugurations, was actually bigger than Obama's. Like, you believe that when the photos clearly prove otherwise. Just, oh yeah, it was the biggest. And oh God, yeah. Oh sure, of course, here. Just to believe a total fantasy and to play along with that and say like, oh yeah, reality distortion field, absolutely. God, you had 3 billion people at your rally. I remember. To take the Eucharist of whatever insanity he pukes up, or the Eucharist of whatever incredible degrading abuse he lurches at someone or throws at them in public, potentially with them in the room, to humiliate. And we either have to swallow it or be the problem at that moment, saying, no, sir. And people are not proving very adept at saying no to him. I fancy I would be all right at that. But we'll see whether or not I personally get that chance. I think people who would be willing to say no and understand the import of doing so are not typically allowed near him. But the fact is that the news remains that while it's probably the most dangerous thing we can do to say, oh, there's no way we can inform the population of America about why these prosecutions are needed and real and why he's been taken into custody. He's been taken into custody because anyone worth the presidency would long ago have said, hey, for the good of the country, I'm going to go through this process. Like, I believe I didn't do anything wrong, so then I'm going to go through this process because I want this court's sanction. This is the court of the country I want to preside over. I don't throw acid in the face of liberty or in the face of justice. I submit. I answer questions. I show respect for power. Because if I can't show respect for power, like if I can't get enough blue pills to artificially make Donnie a hard guy for democracy, who just is going to keep going to town and not losing that steam of respect for executive power that he is artificially inducing. No artificial erection of respect endures. And it seems very, very clear that Donald Trump has executive dysfunction. He cannot sustain genuine respect for power, so it will always flag, and it will be revoked to harm and control and create discord and animosity. We are the reality distortion fielding, all of us. Indeed.